Well, hello, my friends, and welcome once again to the Romano Report podcast. Today is Sunday, September 28th. I don't usually record on Sundays, but I figured what the hell. I'm going through the news right now, and I just wanted to talk about a few things that are on my mind today that are in the news, beginning with a Truth Social post posted by the orange buffoon and war criminal Donald Trump. You probably saw this. He posted this actually yesterday morning, and he wrote, "At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem," what a friggin' embarrassment to the nation that is, "I am directing Secretary of War Pete Kegsbreath." Actually, let me just stop right there. He's not the Secretary of War. I know when I try to explain this stuff, it's like pissing in the wind, but what the hell? To me, facts are important. And I know we sort of live in a post-fact world now where whatever this guy says is treated as if it's real. And he claims that he renamed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. He didn't. Okay? He has no authority to do that. The Department of Defense was created and named by an act of Congress. It is established by law as the Department of Defense. That is its official name. Donald Trump, as president, has no authority to write or alter law. So any attempt he would make to change the name would be without any legal effect. And actually, I do what few people in the media do. Amazingly enough, this is not because I'm great. This is what everyone should be doing, but no one seems to. I actually read his executive order or his executive memo, whatever the fuck he called it, in which he claims to have renamed the Department of Defense. And when you read it, you will discover that he doesn't even actually even pretend to rename the Department of Defense. He simply says essentially that the Department of War, it will be considered a nickname for the Department of Defense. And he is going to refer to it as the Department of War, and he will refer to Kegsbreath as the Secretary of War, and that his administration will refer to it as the Department of War, except in official documents that are required to be filed as a matter of law. So in official documents, it will still be referred to as the Department of Defense, but in unofficial correspondence and just talking about it, Trump and the boys will be referring to it as the Department of War because it's a nickname. It's not an official name. So the point is, Trump does this all the time. He claims that he is doing something by executive order when he's not really doing it by executive order. I mean, I don't know how many examples we have seen from the supposed renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which if you read that executive order, it doesn't do that. It only renames a tiny portion of the Gulf of Mexico that is under our control because, as you know, most of the Gulf of Mexico is international waters. We have no control over it. We can't rename it. So anyway, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, as I already have, but it's bullshit. It's still legally called the Department of Defense. Let me get back to this moron's tweet. Kegsbreath, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, couple things about this. He has learned from some of his past attempts to send the military in. Now, I don't know if he's actually going to do this. Taco Trump still is Taco Trump. For example, remember just a few weeks ago that he said he was going to send troops into Chicago? He didn't. J.B. Pritzker stood up to him, said the troops are neither wanted nor needed, stay out, and Trump did. And he hasn't sent the troops to Chicago. He sent ICE there, and he wants to leave the impression that ICE officers who are there are actually military, but they're not. He didn't send the military there. He's also pretending to send the military to Memphis. And again, his executive order in which he pretends to send the military to Memphis, he only actually created a task force to study how to prevent crime in Memphis. It's all smoke and mirrors. Now, it may be smoke and mirrors in Portland too. Obviously, there's no reason to send the military to Portland. There's nothing going on in Portland. But this is a distraction. This is another distraction from Epstein, as so much of this stuff is. It also serves other purposes, like conditioning the American people to accept the idea of the military being dispatched to American cities. Whether he does it or not, he says he's doing it, and it's all to condition the American people to accept it. But right now, it's primarily about distracting from Epstein. I'm going to have more to say about this. Before I move on, let me say how he's learned, because he has no legal authority. He only has legal authority. Not that I understand, not that the law and the Constitution really are an impediment to him. But he's already been slapped down by the courts on his illegal use of the military. And so he's trying, in the way he explained here in this Truth Social post, he's trying to either talk about sending the military, or if he actually follows through on it, he's trying to do it legally. So that the courts don't strike him down. And that's what he says here. He says that he's going to send the troops to to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa. So he has authority to send troops to protect federal facilities, right? He can do that. He cannot send them just for general policing, which is what he threatened to do in Chicago and then backed down when J.B. Pritzker stood up to him. Now, I don't know if he's, like I said, I don't know if he's actually going to send troops or not. If he does, it's further distraction. He would also love it, I have no doubt, if there is violence that breaks out so that he can order the military to use force against civilians in Portland or anywhere else that he does this. Because I think he thinks he will benefit from this politically. And I don't believe that that's necessarily so, depending upon what happens. I think that he thinks that he was helped greatly, which I believe he's right about, in the summer of 2020, with all those Black Lives Matter protests and all that, where there were riots, and he did benefit from that politically. There is no doubt. That election would not have been as close as it was. He would have lost much bigger to Joe Biden if it weren't for those riots that happened in the summer of 2020. Anyway, I think he would love for something like that to happen again, and I think he would love it if he were able to instigate that. But I don't think it's necessarily true that it will benefit him again, because unlike in 2020, where those things, those riots, and most of those protests were not riots, okay? But in places there were riots. There was damage. There was vandalism. There was crime being committed. Not in most places where there were these BLM protests, but in some places. But those happened organically. Trump didn't necessarily instigate those. Here, he would be instigating any riots that break out or anything like that. And I think people see this. And so I think he may be sorely mistaken if he instigates something, if he instigates some violent protests or even nonviolent protests where he then uses the military, I don't think it's going to benefit him in the way that he thinks it does. This could spiral into a situation that is very, very bad for him. But we'll see. Anyway, that's what's going on. The Oregon governor here has said that there is no need for troops in Portland and they're not wanted there. That is important because there's only a couple reasons, as I said, for Donald Trump. There's only a couple of situations under which it would be legal for him to send troops in, like, for example, under the Insurrection Act. If there was an active insurrection against federal authority, which there's not. If he is protecting federal property, he could do that. Or if a state requests help from the federal government. And in this case, the Oregon governor is making it very clear that we're not requesting your help. So don't even come in here and say that you can come in here and do policing because we're requesting your help. We're not. So anyway, that's what's going on there. Now let's go to the distraction aspect of this, because there is trouble in MAGA world, which I've been talking about for a while, and is only going to get worse the further along we go. And here's a perfect example of that. This is an article in the New York Times about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Greene straying from Trump reflects emerging MAGA split. She is pissed off about Epstein and some other things. She is becoming disillusioned with Donald Trump. She is increasingly speaking out against Donald Trump. And she's pissed. She's pissed at the bullying tactics that are being used against her to keep her quiet, to have her fall in line. Here's another article. Marjorie Taylor Greene sends deeply concerning suicide message to fans. She posted something where she's saying, if I am not suicidal, which is weird for her to say, I am not suicidal, so if I turn up dead, look to powerful people having taken me out to keep me quiet about Epstein. That is some weird shit. And she was going on and on recently about railing against the Trump White House, who is trying to intimidate her. And she was quoted as saying, my response to them is, fuck you. So, and here's the thing, say what you want about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lord knows, oh boy, let's put the screen back on me there. Sorry about that. I'm not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's say that. But the woman's got a set of brass ones. She's not afraid. She knows that the base of her support is the MAGA cult, and yet she is standing up to the MAGA cult leader. And she has not yet been destroyed because of it. So you got to hand it to her. And see, the thing is, fear is what keeps most of these elected members of Congress, and really a lot of these politicians and pundits in the MAGA universe, fear is what keeps them in line. Now, there's a lot of true believers, for sure, who are full-on members of the Trump cult. But especially when we're talking about members of Congress, I don't believe that that's most Republicans. And a lot of them don't really believe in anything. They're just opportunists, and they're not going to stand up to Trump because it will harm them personally. So that's why they're not doing it. They're cowards. They believe in nothing. But there are some who actually believe in some of the things that they've been saying over the years, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and some of them are beginning to wake up to the fact that while they may have believed some of the things that they've been saying, they're now discovering that Donald Trump never did. Now, I don't know why they ever believed that Donald Trump ever believed anything he ever said, but some of them are becoming disillusioned. And especially for like Marjorie Taylor Greene over this Epstein stuff. Like, she really believed the Epstein stuff, and she really believed Donald Trump when he said that he was going to release those files, and she's pissed that he's not. And she's pissed that they're stonewalling, and she's pissed that she is being threatened into silence. So this is something to keep an eye on. And like I said, there is going to be an all-out war on the right. It's only a matter of time. It's just a question of when it actually happens. And we can help hasten that war. You know, the further we go into the Trump presidency, the closer we get to the midterm elections. If it looks like Republicans are going to get destroyed in the midterms, as I believe they will, unless Trump and Republicans can find a way to effectively rig the elections on a massive scale. You know, just tinkering around the edges, like what they're doing with the redistricting, that's not going to get them there. If this is a wave election, that's not going to get them there. In fact, there's a lot of reason to believe that redistricting in the way they are may actually help Democrats. They might actually be putting Democrats in a better position to pick up additional seats, and they might be hurting their own chances. Because a lot of what they're doing with this redistricting is based on turnout models from the 2024 election. Well, the world has changed considerably since the last election. A lot of groups that came out for Donald Trump, surprisingly, like Hispanics, for example, in which he was surprisingly strong with these groups have all abandoned him, or many of them have abandoned them, according to polls. And so if you are drawing maps, like for example in Texas, thinking you're going to win these newly formed districts because Trump did so much better with Hispanics in the last election, and you think that Hispanics are going to come out for Republicans in the same way they did in the last election, they may be sorely mistaken. And if the polls are any indication, if Hispanics as just one group have snapped back to more normal levels of support for Democrats versus Republicans, and they drew maps based on the 2024 turnout, they may actually be helping Democrats. But anyway, as we get closer to the election, if Republicans start to fear that they're going to lose their seats, they may start distancing themselves from Trump more publicly. We'll see. I don't know. Not predicting it, but that could happen. But as we get further and further along, as Trump becomes more deranged, as he continues to destroy the economy, as he continues to bleed support across the country, which I believe he will do, as it dawns on more and more people that this guy is not going to be around much longer, and they start to look to the future. What does the world look like post-Trump? And as these groups inside the MAGA universe begin to try to war with themselves for power and dominance inside of the MAGA world, you're going to see more and more. You're going to see the MAGA civil war explode. The only thing that these people don't believe in anything. They have no principles. You know, now certain groups might believe in certain things, but generally speaking, none of them really believe in anything other than power. And the only thing that has held them together through much of the last decade has been Donald Trump. Once they realize Donald Trump will soon be gone, and there's going to be nothing to hold them together any longer, they're going to be vying for dominance inside that movement. Anyway, the war is coming. It absolutely is coming. Okay, what else do I have here? Did you know this was a thing? MAGA is now like turning their sights on the WNBA, the Women's Basketball League, because, you know, they are anti-Trump. They've been political. I haven't paid much attention to the WNBA, so I don't know much about what they've been saying, and I really don't much care. But, you know, these free speech MAGAs, they just continue to prove that they never believed in free speech. It was all bullshit. It's always been bullshit. Pretty much everything they have said about everything has been bullshit. And I was initially wondering when I saw this story, how are they going to go after the WNBA? What, are they going to boycott the WNBA? MAGA's not watching the WNBA anyway. So they don't give a shit, you know, in terms of losing MAGA as fans of the WNBA and as audience. But what they're likely to do is to target sponsors and advertisers of the WNBA. That's if they're going to effectively attack the WNBA. That's how they'll do it. They'll threaten the advertisers and the sponsors, and who knows? It may be effective because there is no courage in corporate America, none whatsoever, as they have demonstrated time and time again. And so, who knows? But this is fascism. They have learned well from their fascist dictator, and they will attack anyone who criticizes their cult leader. Now, I want to show you a video here. This is ICE agents have attacked. Oh, God damn it! My allergies really getting to me today. What is with this fucking weather? Obviously, you all are from different parts of the country and maybe outside the country, so you live in different climates. But where I live, it should be getting cold now, right? We should be having our first frost anytime now. It's going to be in the mid-friggin' 80s today. This is insane. I hate it. I mean, how much further north do I have to go? I freaking hate the heat. I can't stand it. If it gets above like 65 degrees, I can't even wear shoes. I'm insane with the heat. So this is really friggin' killing me. But I guess, global warming's not real, right? I mean, just in the last 10 years where I live, it's been obvious, the change in the climate. It warmer and warmer every single friggin' year. The frost comes later. The snow melts earlier. Not as cold as it usually is in the winter. Much hotter than it usually is in the summer. And these friggin' MAGAs say that global warming is a hoax. Climate change is a hoax because it's not. And they point to the difficulty of predicting exactly how the climate will change and exactly how the temperatures will change. This is the world climate is such a complicated, dynamic system of, convection and heat exchange and ocean currents and atmospheric currents and all these things that are going on. It's damn near impossible to predict with any accuracy how exactly the changing climate will manifest itself. And they use that difficulty in predicting specifics as evidence, as for their argument that climate change is a hoax. These people are so fucking stupid. I mean, just think about it, just from a common sense point of view. We are literally changing the composition of the atmosphere. We are literally changing the chemical composition of the atmosphere. And you don't think that might have an effect on the climate? But you try having that conversation with a fucking MAGA who doesn't know anything about anything, certainly nothing about climate science, right? They're not going to. Anyway, the point is I'm pissed off with the weather. Should be nice and chilly. I love the fall, but we haven't gotten fall yet. I'm waiting for the fall to show up, and apparently it's not going to show up anytime soon. Anyway, I've got a video here that I want to play for you. This is some masked ICE thugs, criminals, really, assaulting a 79-year-old man who is a U.S. citizen. Anyway, it'll be explained in this video, so let me pull it up here, see if I can expand this a little bit for you. Okay, and go.
A 79-year-old business owner says he was body slammed and pinned to the ground by federal agents during an immigration raid despite being a U.S. citizen. We're hearing more from him tonight as he files a $50 million lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. Fox 11's Laura Diaz now with the details. Laura?
Surveillance video shows agents first approaching the elderly man inside of his business 2 weeks ago. He says he attempted to ask them what they needed and pleaded with them to allow his workers to retrieve their papers proving they had a right to work in the U.S.
Let me just stop it there. Does it look like this use of force against this man was justified? Because remember, these MAGAs seem to think that law enforcement can they're exempt from our criminal laws related to assault, and that they can use whatever force they want against anyone, especially if they're brown. That's not the way it works. Members of, law enforcement, government, can only use such force as is necessary, given the circumstances. And if they use excessive force, that is a crime. That is assault, or in some cases, much, much worse than assault. Anyway, tell me if in this video it appears to you that knocking this man to the ground was necessary. Go.
Approaching the elderly man inside of his business 2 weeks ago.
That guy did nothing to that officer. That guy was no threat to that officer. That guy simply was coming up to that officer. He didn't lay hands on that officer. He didn't push that officer. He didn't attempt to assault that officer in any way. This guy just ran right through him and knocked him to the ground.
Inside of his business 2 weeks ago. He says he attempted to ask them what they needed and pleaded with them to allow.
That man is a criminal.
Allow his workers to retrieve their papers proving they had a right to work in the U.S. Instead, he was thrown to the ground.
So you were pushed 2 times, one in the hallway,
one in the hallway and one outside.
Undeterred, he followed the agents outside, where he says the encounter escalated, even though he was respectful. Rafi was now terrified, outnumbered, and outmuscled.
What can I do for you? That one of the guys came, grabbed me here, and 2 guys attacked me from the back, and they threw me on the ground.
At a news conference Thursday called by Shoehead's attorney announcing a $50 million civil rights claim, Rafi said that he suffered multiple broken ribs, damage to his brain from being slammed headfirst into the ground. He showed his bruises to reporters. Despite his protests that he's an American citizen, he says he was arrested, detained at a federal center for hours upon hours without medical attention.
There you go. That's Trump's America. That's what your fellow citizens voted for. I get people talk a lot about the difficulty in figuring out how to deal with friends and family who voted for Donald Trump. And that's a difficult question. Everybody has to make their own decision about how you do that. I don't know how you can be friends with anyone who voted for Donald Trump at this point. I mean, speaking for myself, look, if you could put politics aside and you could be friends, I've been friends with them my whole life and I don't want politics to ruin that friendship. That's fine. This is completely up to you. I don't look at it that way. This is more than politics. If we go back 10 years or something when politics was more normal, yeah, maybe. I mean, what did we argue about? Tax cuts or Obamacare or whatever. I'm not going to, end a friendship because I disagree with somebody about tax rates or healthcare policy. That's not what we're talking about here. Supporting Donald Trump now is supporting this kind of government tyranny, government violence against American citizens. This is, you support Donald Trump now, you support political violence to overthrow the government, to install someone, in order for a corrupt politician to install themselves as dictator for life. That's what January 6th was about. If you still support Donald Trump, you support all that. You support rapists, okay? Donald Trump was found liable for sexually abusing a woman. You support that. You support a criminal. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. You support all of this. You support using the military to murder people on the high seas in international waters, murdering people in small boats who are 1,500 miles away from the United States, so that you can distract from the fact that you're in the Epstein files, distract from the fact that you're hiding your involvement with a pedophile, with a child rapist, and what you may have done with that pedophile child rapist. Maybe you abused young girls in the same way, and you're desperately trying to cover it up. That's what you support when you still support Donald Trump. Now, I don't know about you. I don't want to be friends with someone like that. And again, you've got to make your own decisions how you want to handle these people in your life. I don't want to be friends with somebody like that. Why would I be? I don't want to be friends with a horrible person. At this point, there's no excuse. Someone is either so breathtakingly stupid and ignorant of who and what this man is. I don't want to be, if that's their explanation, if that's the reason they support Donald Trump, I don't want to be friends with them for that reason either. Okay, I'm not interested in having stupid friends. Okay, so if stupidity is the reason, okay, you're too stupid to be my friend. If you actively support this, well, then you're a disgusting, horrible human being, and I don't want to be your friend. So I don't understand the whole friend thing. That's a voluntary relationship. I simply don't get how anyone could choose to continue to be friends with a MAGA at this point in time. Family, obviously a more difficult issue. I will tell you this, though. I don't know how, and again, just speaking for myself, I don't know how, if you have a MAGA relative, how that does not fundamentally change the way you view that person. Maybe you don't want to completely excise them from your life. I totally understand that. But I got to imagine that if you're a decent person, it's got to fundamentally alter your relationship. It's got to completely change the way you even look at that person. But anyway, this is what those people voted for. They voted for fascism. They voted for a police state. They voted for militarizing law enforcement as you know, to use force against the American people. This is just sick. It's just, I struggle to put my feelings about this into words anymore. I never thought we'd get here. I never doubted that Donald Trump would want to get here, and he's going to push this far, much further. I don't think we've seen anything yet in terms of what he wants to do. What surprises me is the lack of pushback. That is what surprises me. I can't believe there's virtually no pushback to this. Not from the people with power to push back. I mean, there is organic pushback among the people. And I think that's going to continue. And that's, at least right now, is the only way we can fight back against this. But we have no power in our system of government to do anything to stop him right now. You and I, the voter, the average American citizen, we're not empowered to do anything. Those people that we have empowered through our votes, those people who have the power aren't using it at all. And the extent to which they have bent the knee, I don't know that I anticipated that. And corporate America and institution after institution just giving into this, obeying in advance, giving this piece of shit everything he wants. The only people standing up are people like this guy right here. This guy who said, fuck that, you can't do this to me, I'm an American citizen and I'm going to sue you for $50 million. So, I hope this man is successful. Anyway, authoritarianism in America, just another Sunday. Anyway, I got to run. I thank you for watching as always. And if you don't subscribe to my other two channels, please do so. That would be Romano and the Romano Report. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.